Digger is delighted to bring you this podcast series, which is designed for audit and finance enthusiasts, to hear from some of the most high-profile thought leaders from around the globe. Each episode will detail the guest's journey to the top, while bringing unique insights drawn from first-hand experience on the industry's most trending topics. The podcast is hosted by myself, Linda Engelbrecht, founder of Digger, and the lead talent strategist, Craig Murray, a search and talent solutions business that operates exclusively in the audit and CA space.
Hello, all you audit and data professionals out there, as well as the members of the exclusive Digger community. Thanks again for joining us. It gives me great pleasure to welcome and introduce our guest this morning, Bongani Mhlophe. He is with us today. Bongani, he is qualified with his MCom in financial economics from the University of Johannesburg and holds a diploma in management practices from the Henly Business School. He has extensive experience in the financial sector, spanning over 10 years serving in different roles within most of the major banks in South Africa. He began his career at ABSA as a retail credit risk analyst, and he has gained invaluable experience within the credit regulatory analytics, quantitative analytics, and model risk space within the sector. Bongani currently holds the esteemed position of Senior Audit Manager, Model Risk at Nedbank. Bongani, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. That's such a great introduction, eh?
Yeah, I could have gone on even further.
Yeah, we're sitting among greatness here, I think.
I'm
Right?
telling you, yes. Bongani, I want to find out, I think to start things off, what inspired you to get into this line of work, into this profession? You know, I think I don't know, people get into it for many different reasons. Often they have friends, family, that are in the profession. But, how did you decide to start a career within the space?
So I guess the first aspect would be the ABSA role within the credit risk analytics space. So I was looking for a role that would ensure that I am able to use my quantitative analytic skills and also be able to apply my mathematical skills. That's why I then joined ABSA. And then from ABSA a credit risk analyst role to audit, it was incidental at first. I had worked for 3 years in my role. I was looking for something new. And one of the guys who were doing master's work was an auditor. So we started chatting about what they do and what they do for the organization and why it's important, the role they do. And typically, as soon as someone says they're in audit, you're thinking, how are you in audit and you're not an accountant?
Exactly.
So it was one of those conversations. And then after he told me all about it, I got interested. I put in my CV. Interview process came through, and that's how I started my journey in audit.
Okay,
That's
interesting.
wonderful. I think it's quite not a jump, but a transition from your quantitative analytics, mathematics, pure maths. I think that's what you studied. And then finding yourself in audit. And it's almost like Richard Branson says, even if you don't know, just say yes and you'll figure it out as you go. And I think that's maybe, you really took that chance to expand and diversify your skills. And I think that is quite a pertinent point, I think, for all our listeners and a great takeaway from individuals that's really achieved a sort of prestige within their career is all the yeses that got you to where you are today. And it's not the no's, but the yeses that get you there, So
100%.
my question to that, Bongani, is your expectation of your career or audit or quants or the transition of and the reality. Because I think sometimes we've got this picture, like you said, sure, people would ask me, how did you go from analytics to audit of all spaces? But I want to understand your expectation or maybe the perception in the market of audit. And then what was your reality in a career that you've built in audit with maybe a mix of analytics and quants?
Good question.
So I think so much like the expectation, you see audit and you see suits and people being serious. And what I found there is at the point where I joined, it was still really a developing area within the quantitative analytics space within audit. So we had a lot of space to create while we are working, which was
Wow.
quite brilliant.
Mm.
Even in my current role, when I joined the team was developing, so it gave me a lot of opportunity to explore what's happening with the organization and then position ourselves as a quantitative analytics team
Yeah.
and how we can then build our brand within audit and how we can audit mathematical models while still aligning to audit techniques, audit methodologies, which non-audit people really find difficult. So it's just the suits and just adjusting to the seriousness of methodology and all aspects of that, and then saying how do I, as Bongani and as Bongani and my team, shape what we are doing and make a mark for ourselves
That's
for
wonderful.
now and in the future.
Can
That's
I
great.
jump in there, Craig? I just got
Sure, go
one
for it.
extra
Yeah.
angle. So we are dealing with a particular position within a listed organization, also within the IT audit more space. But how I'm drawing the comparison to maybe you having a space that you could create as well as work within. And I'm sure in those days, and maybe currently as well, sometimes when you step into those roles, it does feel bigger than yourself. Like it's almost like this leap of faith to say the magnitude of this role is quite, you feel the weight of it. So it can almost be like quite scary to walk into that magnitude of a role. And what we found is people either say, yes, I'm going to go for it, I'm taking the bull by the horns and I'll make the best out of it, which I think you did. And then we've got other individuals that says, sure, I think it's almost like that saying, I don't know if I could, right? And it feels like I don't want to be put up for failure. What would your opinion be on that?
So typically my approach to stuff is I'm very adaptable. So with the mathematical background from university, if you think about it, right, the career path for really maths majors in university is academics. However, what it teaches you is a core skill, which is problem solving. And if
Lovely.
you know how to solve a problem, it can be a problem in a bank, it can be a problem in a telecommunications company, it could be a problem in ESCOM even. But with that particular skill, you can then be able to adapt to any environment as long as you understand what type of problem you're dealing with and how to solve it. And then from a personality perspective, so change and new adventures excite me. So building new things really excites me. So one person who likes taking on the adventure of saying an area is undefined, and if I have a chance to come in and define it and lay out the foundation, and also just from a future perspective, then just see it in my brain and make it happen. It's very excited
Lovely.
for me. So that's how I could, even in audit, take on new roles and be able to adjust quickly and succeed because of my personality type and my background.
And your vision, I suppose.
Yes. So we did Enneagram assessments at work last year,
Yeah.
and I'm a type. I can't remember the number, but it's visionary leader.
Yes, that's
Very
awesome.
nice. Very
So
nice.
it's exactly describes
Yeah,
exactly what I am.
Yeah, there's this saying
absolutely.
that says, where there's no vision, the people perish. And I think from a leader, you being in a senior management role within the organization, I believe that visionary leadership stands you in good stead, where you can cast vision and the people will follow. Because if you can't cast the vision, then you're just going for a walk, I suppose.
Absolutely. You're there by yourself.
Yes, exactly.
So Bongani, you were talking about, you mentioned that you and your team ask questions, and I think on top of everything that you've been saying, that you've got the technical ability, and then the characteristics and the mindset is so important. I think asking good questions, is always such a good way to find vision, to find focus, and to steer things into the right direction. So that's so important. But
So
with
good.
everything that's been said, is there anything that you would, if you cast your vision back, on those early days where you are now, your career path, what do you think you would have liked to have done differently? Is there a specific, moment, a tipping point, something specific, or is it kind of, along the way you wanted to maybe massage here, touch up there, whatever it might be? What would you
Mm.
have done differently up to this point?
So if I speak to myself in 2011, 2012, when I was joining the workforce,
Yes.
I think at the beginning of my career, I focused a lot on the building technical skill
Mm.
and just working hard to just understand the technical stuff, and didn't invest a lot more in the softer, more relationship type of building. I think if I had invested a lot more in building
Mm,
long, fulfilling relationships within the corporate world, it's great for one career progression, because
mm,
people hire people they like. We can say whatever we
That's
can,
true.
we can
true.
mask it whichever way we want to. However, beyond me saying, can Bongani do the job? It's me saying, do I like Bongani enough to see him for 8 hours every day?
Exactly. Can I work with him?
Exactly. So I think if I can go back in time, is to build better relationships. I've started doing that now in my career.
Mm.
However, it would have benefited me a lot more in my early ages.
That's great advice.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
very
it's
good.
something that you build over time. You
Mm.
rely on your technical ability and skill, but it's a fine art that you develop as you go along. You don't you're worried about hierarchical structures and things like that, and what can I say, what can't I say. And it's a maturity thing for sure.
Yeah,
It develops as you go along. But that's interesting. Interesting
yeah.
aspect. Yeah.
I think also if we just look at being your younger self, and I think the advice or the input that you are giving regarding the networking, the softer human skills that comes, I suppose, with maturity as well. I do believe that in those younger days, it's almost seeking out a mentor, a business person that inspires you, a coach. And I think we sometimes brush over that, going more for the technical skills, which is very important, but not discounting the importance of the softer skills that we can gain from gleaning from business people that might have achieved what we've want to achieve in our career and then implementing it, or a community that can walk with you and honing those skills early on in your career. As you say, you only really starting to dig the wells with community or with your network and etc etc, and we know how important a network is, because they say it's not what you know, it's who you know or who knows you, right?
Definitely,
Yes.
yes.
So my question actually then ties in quite well with what you said, because I want to know what business person or people inspires you the most. Is there particular people, business people or career people that really inspire you?
Yeah, this was a difficult one actually, because so I always connect with people, especially from a business or career, who who come from humble beginnings and have made it beyond their past, if you can call it that.
Mm,
So someone like Richard Maponya, who
Mm,
made it
mm,
through apartheid South Africa, when a black man struggles to even get a decent job, if you can
yeah,
call it that, and
yeah.
established a business which is still standing even post his passing.
mm,
You can see it even in Soweto with the Maponya Mall and some of his
Yes.
other shopping centers. And closer to home in terms of banking, like Sim Shabalala, who's the first black CEO really of a top tier bank in South Africa.
sure.
And
That's
if I
amazing.
were to hone in, I think those are the two people that I'd look at and say, yeah, these people have done well for themselves, and given the tough environment, even in banking at this moment in time, for even black talent trying to go up.
Sure. That is amazing.
It's
Yeah.
inspirational, they forged the pathway, and for people to follow, and you can see what's possible, and that's what it's about at the end of the day. So I mean, on the back of that, Bongani, is there a specific philosophy that you live by, or any specific quote, maybe a quote, some quotes that drive you, daily for your vision, and the leadership role that you play as well?
Yeah, so I always tell my team, you must always show up as the best version of yourself.
Sure.
So
Love it.
the only competition you really have is yourself, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can say you are competing with other people in the organization, but at the end of the day, it's your career. You are driving it, and you must be better than yesterday's version. You must be better than last year's
Mm,
version.
mm.
And if you are
Yeah.
always improving, there's nothing else you can then aspire to do, because that is the best version of yourself at any point in time.
Yeah.
I love that. People
Yeah.
underestimate those small little changes, and people think there needs to be a big change, and there's something really big that happened behind the person to get to where they are. It's a small incremental changes, that constant change. If you looked at the trajectory, those small changes put you in a very different place if it's ongoing and constant. So that better
Yeah.
version of yourself on a daily basis is a powerful teaching. It's really nice. I like it.
Yeah. One of our in Digger, one of our values is just be 1% better each day.
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant.
1% better each day. Because it's that incremental growth, right? That when you look back, it's like a massive difference in your career. Just that little bit, little bit, little bit. Because it's almost like what they say is, how do we climb the mountain? Well, one step at a time, right? One step at a
100%.
time.
Mm.
So my question to you is a pinch me moment. So if I ask this question, if I sit in that question myself, and I think to myself, in my career, in my life, a pinch me moment was, for example, when I met Nelson Mandela on a very random day as a young girl working in a corporate office. And all of a sudden, we saw these black, like very serious cars drive up. And as they climb out, everybody's, oh, that's Nelson Mandela. That is it F.W. de Klerk, right?
Yeah.
And I got to shake his hand.
Oh, nice.
And it was a pinch me moment.
Mm.
And there's a lot of them, but if I think of one pinch me moment, it would be that. Do you have one of those?
Now that I think about it after your story, it's amazing. So I think mine is a bit more, I guess, serious, if you can call it that.
Yes.
So when I graduated, or when I finished my honors at Wits, I stayed for close to a year, looking for a job, unfortunately, and the unemployment rate in South Africa is very bad, right? And I experienced it firsthand. Can you imagine coming from a high institution such as Wits, with a established degree such as
Yeah.
maths, and struggling to find a job? So I spent a good part of the year looking. Eventually took up a teaching role in some school in Soweto.
Wow.
And in November of that same year, then I eventually got a job. And I think that was a moment of disbelief that, you
Sure.
know, within that
Crazy.
year, I
Sure.
applied for over 200 companies, and I got
Wow.
3 interviews. So,
Wow.
Sure.
Shows you the
Sure.
competition, hey? How competitive the market is, especially
exact
for new job finders entering the market. It's extremely competitive.
100%. So it was I think when that contract came, even the numbers didn't matter. It was just
Yeah.
finally,
Yeah.
this is my opportunity.
I've
And
made
can
it,
I tell you,
Yes.
Bongani, can I tell you, I've got a very similar story. Like I also studied at Potch or Northwest University, and after my honors degree, I okay, now we can enter the workforce. And I don't know if we've got a little bit of a chip on your shoulder as soon as you leave varsity, because now I've got a degree, right?
Yeah.
And life sometimes just humbles you. But I remember also putting my CV out there. I worked at Westkoppies for a little bit, which is a in like a psychiatric institution for a while, just because I needed to stay busy and wanted to, not sit at home, and really try. So I really feel what you say there, because there was a couple of months that passed where I thought, why am I not getting interviews? Why am I not? And I think there's so many young people in South Africa with our, unemployment rate being so high, that experiences on a daily basis. But what I would like for people to also take away from it is that even if you have to go, and if it's possible, because we also understand each situation is unique, that go and be a waiter at a restaurant, or go and be a teacher in Soweto, or try different things, even if you have to go and start a little shop, or sell stuff. It is skills that is built over time, but it's never wasted. We always say it's money in the bank. It's money in the bank.
Everything you do. I got my BCom MBM and I went and I did bar jobs, and I actually went overseas with it and all that sort of thing. I'll tell you what, that helped me cut my teeth in terms of how to graft hard, how to work long hours, how to, practice your memory when you're taking an order of 50 different drinks or whatever the case may be. But it's invaluable experience. I wanted to go and experience the world a little bit. And because of that, actually, that's how I got my first job. I was actually bartending for a private function for a company. And they said, listen, we're going to hire you. Would you like to start next year? And off I went. But yeah, no, absolutely. It's all money in the bank. So listen, Bongani, I wanted to ask you, is there one thing in your career? I mean, there could be many things, but what are you most proud of up to this point in terms of your achievements?
So I think it
besides
falls
getting a job for the first time.
Yeah.
It falls in line with definitely where I come from, right? I come from very humble beginnings. So I'm proud of where I am right now, based on where I actually come from. Because if you look at it, I used to take the train to Wits University for the 5 years I was there, and even the career wasn't as rosy as it probably looks in my CV. I've had many challenges where I've had other managers that didn't align with my personality or what I wanted to do. Personal tragedies from university through my career. However, I'm proud that I keep on going, and I keep on growing at every point in time.
Sure.
So
100%.
yeah, even for where I am right now, I think I'm proud of the role I've taken within the organization that I am in, and of the work that we are doing, which means a lot to the business unit within Group Internal Audit and to the organization.
Sure.
Great. Oh, that's lovely.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So I think you've alluded to my next question in the sense of we need to be very careful when we say failures, right? Because sometimes you're just falling forward, But if you look back at your career, and I'm sure we're all learning and growing until we put our heads on the pillow and blow out our last breath. But my question is, how is a failure or an apparent failure set you up for later success in your life? And if you have a favorite failure of yours, what would that be?
Okay, no, cool. So our CRO gave us a speech. Is it last week, or I think last week actually? Funny, and he kept on saying, so when he failed, his constant reminder was to always put your name up on the scoreboard. So I think that's an inspirational.
Sure, that's very nice.
Yeah. So I'm like, yeah, no, that sounds so great, right? I think so if you do fail, and I have failed many times,
Yeah, we all have.
it's a sentence or a statement that I align to, right? Because in one of the banks, I had applied for a quant manager role, coming from audit. I didn't get that particular role after interviews, and the head of that department offered me a senior quant role. Can you imagine reporting into that manager that I didn't
that
get?
you want to? Sure.
So I took it and said, no, cool. let's see what happens. Worked there for a year. However, my aspirations to be a quant manager didn't stop. I
Mm.
had a conversation with him and said, "Is there anything you're seeing in your structure that I can take up?" And he had nothing. So then I started contacting recruitment guys within the organization, and eventually I landed a quant manager role within.
Lovely.
Yes, and I think that's a failure that at least in that instance
It turned out.
produced, yeah, turned out well after a year. So
Yeah.
I guess it delay was not denial at that point in
Mm.
time.
Well said.
100%.
Well
Yeah, very
said.
nice. Exactly. Denial is not denial. So, on the back of that, you've mentioned some people. Obviously, you've mentioned some people that you look up to that have been inspiration for you. Is there a specific person, right, that you say you couldn't have? Like maybe it's a mentor, maybe it's a family member, maybe it's a friend, maybe it's a colleague, right? Someone that you feel that you couldn't have done, what you've done without.
Okay.
Um, is there someone that that besides inspiration, maybe it's that person, I don't know, but who would you say is that one person? Yeah, if I just didn't have that person in my life, I wouldn't be where I am right now.
So it's not a person as such, but I think
Yes.
a group of people in my
Mm.
family.
Okay, that's
Um,
great.
so so there's a without the proper family foundation, I think it's
Mm,
difficult for someone to succeed because they must help you through either the failures, they must celebrate your successes, they must and they are there right till late nights. It's either they make sure I get dinner. For
Thank you
those
to moms, right?
yes, exactly. Thank
right.
you, mom.
Yes,
You
exactly.
know, so my wife, my son, my aunts, it's more those people who are a family structure where you can talk to someone when things are not going well. When things
Mm.
are going well, you have someone to celebrate with. So it's always a I think for myself, my family has been very, very helpful in all avenues I've explored through my studies, through my work. Especially, I think my wife is when I'm studying and working at the same time, because then it takes
Mm,
away time for them,
Yeah,
and
sure.
they've been very understanding. And yeah, I do study a lot, so
mm.
That's
I
wonderful.
I
That's
think
wonderful.
it's been a hectic time for them.
Yeah,
And
they
I think
say.
that is the heart of this initiative with the Win at Work podcast
Mm,
brought to us by Digger, right? And because we were created to be in fellowship or in relationship with one another. And I think that is why the group that you surround yourself with, there's this saying that says, show me your friends and I'll predict you your future. And I think on the basis of that, if we surround ourselves with people that either inspire us, support us, speaks life into us, or blows wind into our sails, right? Or we learn from their mistakes as well, then we can be better than what we were yesterday, as what we said, that 1% incremental growth. And I think that is so important for a community then that you function in, that forms you, because we always say what informs you forms you, right? And that's exactly, if your wife comes alongside you, gives you the dinner whilst you're studying, has grace for you, your child's there, even though there's sacrifices along the way, it's those group of people that hold your hands up, when you get tired or whatever the case may be. It's quite a beautiful thing. Now, in terms of, you said also you study a lot, right? But I wanted to find out, what is your future plans? If we look at your career progression, where you started, where you are now, maybe looking to your future, what is the plans that you have for yourself and your career?
So for now, my my short-term goal from a studying perspective, I'd like to get an MBA,
Mm,
which will give me a bit more business acumen. And how I see my career shaping up post audit is I'd like to join a business unit or head up a department that will, one, allow me to influence the balance sheet. So, first line of defense. And
lovely.
secondly, still be able to use my quantitative analytics and problem solving skills. So, a combination of both of that type of business unit or department.
Yeah.
I think that's what I'm looking to do in a couple of years. So while
Sure.
I'm in audit now, it's just building my business acumen, building my business understanding, and also with the MBA, just helping cement some of that financial acumen, and then moving on from then audit into a specific business unit.
Mm.
Sure. Great
Yeah, that's
aspirations. Yeah.
absolutely, and I think that combination with the data analytics is so important in this space, and it's a requirement in business.
Yeah.
And there are not very many people. We look at the totality of the people in the industry that have that unique combination. So it's a very good thing to be working towards. I think it's going to make you very marketable in the future as well, much
Yeah.
more so. Um, what I want to talk about now, Bongani, is quite close to our hearts, within the business. And leadership is such an important, thing. It's an important topic. We know this, right? So you basically in your position, you perform a leadership role, right? And you have a leadership function. Do you have people that are reporting into you, Bongani? You right? Okay.
Yes, I do.
Okay, so you've got direct reports, you've got a team that you're leading, and you understand how important it is, right? So, we like asking this question and hearing from authority figures in the industry about leadership. Okay, what do you believe we should expect from leaders? I suppose in general, but in this space specifically. Okay, this is a very important question. And what do you believe should change, or what aren't we doing from a leadership perspective that we should be doing in
Yeah.
this space?
So I think as leaders, especially in this day post pandemic, especially,
Absolutely.
we
Yeah.
should invest a lot in our softer skills.
Yeah.
Compassionate, be human, be relatable, because unlike the past when people were bosses, if you can call it that, and
Mm.
were barking instructions and just saying do this, do that, do that, um, it's a different type of environment that we are working in right now, where there's a talent pool that is available. However, people are competing for it,
Yeah.
and people are our biggest asset in audit and in anyways in banking generally. So without you treating your people well and treating them with respect, one, they won't do as much, they won't perform as well as you want them to be,
Yeah.
and also they won't go uh, take steps further, right? If you need people to work late, or you need people to put in a lot more hours, or you need people to even do what you asked them to do, it requires you to be a much softer leader.
Mm.
And if people can relate to you, because in my team, I always tell them that I'm just here to guide and to lead you and make sure that you guys are doing well, but you must be happy,
Mm.
so that if you are happy, then you'll make sure I'm happy and will
Mm.
perform
Mm.
well as a team. So I think leaders nowadays need to make sure that their people are happy, that people are well taken care of emotionally, mentally,
Yeah.
and from a money perspective, obviously.
Absolutely.
Good
Yeah.
point. Yeah.
And I think that takes quite a level of maturity within that space to be able to lead with feedback, because I think it's a relational
Sure.
thing, as you said. It's a relationship that you are, respect is earned most of the time.
Yeah.
And people look to leaders to model behavior. And as you were saying, you can't just be barking orders. We live in a day and age now where, that's just not going to go down well. You rely on the team to do what they need to do, and they're going to be able to do that by mimicking behavior.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it's that relational thing. So as I was saying, the maturity to lead and still receive feedback and maintain the respect and your position within the leadership role is
It's
it's a
key.
dance. Yeah, and it's key.
Yeah. I think it's Brene Brown. She actually wrote a book. I gave a speech about it once to a group of females in industry, and the book was called Leading with Vulnerability.
Mm.
And it was pre-pandemic, obviously, when she wrote the book. And I remember her the whole concept was saying, if we lead from a place of vulnerability, we connect so much more with the people that's in our charge.
Absolutely.
Simon Sinek is also quite huge within. It's like you are not in charge. You are you don't lead, or you are in charge of the people. What is it? I can't even remember what he said, but it was so inspirational what he said. But I think if we are vulnerable, we also have grace for one another. You can like relate to people and even be respected, because you don't have to be popular.
Yeah.
You just need to be respected and trusted that what you say is what you will do, but also that you will have their best interest at heart, the people that you lead at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
So it's such a good point.
Yeah.
Now,
Absolutely.
in terms of looking like at your future, and you're saying you want to do the MBA and business acumen, what my question is to you, and we are very passionate in this area as Digger, and I think we should be all passionate about this topic of the future world of work and the skills that we might need in our professional careers going forward. And if we're looking at what the global market is doing, what is coming down the pike, what will be needed from me as an individual, right, to really impact an organization, like you said, being the first line of defense or impacting the bottom line. What type of skill sets do you see technically, and maybe also softer skills, but maybe it's business acumen? What type of skills do you see in our profession as the future world of work?
So in terms of skills, I think if you think about and there's buzzwords, right? Robotics, AI,
Oh,
machine
yeah,
learning,
absolutely. Yeah.
where these are buzzwords. But what people are actually saying is, so it's one, mathematical skills,
Mm,
um, problem solving skills. So without the basic mathematical skills, you can't understand machine learning or artificial intelligence, because it's just an extension of basic maths.
mm,
However, if someone were to say, if they were to get into the industry, let's say now or 5 years from now, what would be important for them? I think basic programming or an understanding of programming will
yeah.
be very important. And similarly, post understanding of programming, the biggest winners will be people who will be able to use data
Mm,
and interpret it into understandable business intelligence
yes.
analysis that can be used to make decisions.
Mm,
And those in the future of work will be the biggest winners, because there's a lot of data out there. If you think about companies like an FNP, a Discovery, which uses behavioral economics to force us, if you can call it, to do certain behaviors, right? With the e-bucks and
yes.
also the vitality rewards. Because what they do is they say, if you buy something, if you buy here, if you do this, then we'll reward you. And that's essentially behavioral economics to say,
Yes.
um, if you do this, this is what's your reward. And this is, while you are doing that, I'm collecting your data so that I can sell you stuff
Yeah.
and also make money from it.
Sure.
And that's
Absolutely.
exactly the power of data coming out. It's just that we are just swiping away our cards and we won't notice it.
That's true. That's so true. And so
100%.
what you're saying is then it's a combination of skills that you
100.
need to work on. It's programming, so it's more your IT type of skills, coding. You don't have to be an expert, but I do think if you can combine your coding, IT, data, risk, mathematical skills early on in your career, because you'll have those skill sets actually no matter where you go.
Yes.
You'll use it in the future.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
I think following on to that, Bongani, technology is such again, also buzzword, and looking what we're doing and looking at, I think we can start doing what we're doing with data, obviously, because technology is where it is. And it's
That's it.
vice versa. We now understand the importance of data, figuring out how to use it, the impact it can have on our business, and, the future of the business moving forward. So
Mm.
I wanted to ask you, as a whole, I suppose, but also specifically, what do you see the role role of technology, how's it played a role in what you do in the past? So when things weren't as technical as where we are now, obviously we're also in the day and age where we're working remote, things are set up more in the cloud, etc., etc. So present, and then also into the future. How do you see technology's influence within your space, and where do you see it going
Yeah.
from now, moving forward?
So I guess in its infancy right now, technologies, so one, an enabler, and also if you think about technology and you align it to automation, right,
Yes.
where people are building bots
Mm.
to then eliminate manual repeatable tasks, which can then be automated. It's either using programming languages or using an actual bot that will just do what you are doing manually.
Yeah.
So I think the importance of thinking about what then, how does it then impact the future, right? It's thinking about, so as soon as you automate someone's job, what
Yeah.
then happens to a Bongani if he does a manual job?
Yeah.
So then we must start thinking about what then can Bongani, or which skills can Bongani get to then either influence or make the bot better, or which softer skills can Bongani get that can't be automated.
Yeah.
And
I
and
think,
that's
Bongani, you don't want to bite the hand that feeds you. Make the bot smarter so they make your job, irrelevant eventually. Hey, you got to be careful.
Yeah, that's true.
so it's that type of thing that you,
Yeah.
so technology is important. So because if there's a job or a manual item of your job that you're doing
Yeah.
and it's repeated, it
Mm,
can be automated, right?
mm,
But
mm.
there's still some work which is not able to be fully automated,
Yeah.
and that's where humans still play a part now and in the future.
Yeah.
How are
So
you using
yeah.
technology? Sorry, Linda, just want
Mm.
to jump in there. To your
Yeah.
advantage, Bongani, what is the biggest advantage right now for you in the work that you're doing? How are you
So
using it? How is it adding value in
Mm.
what you do right now?
so for us, it's more in the models we build, or in the automations we do, such as, so for one, maybe timesheets. If you can find a quicker solution to do either timesheets for you, or to maybe automate items such as, what do you call it, capacity planning.
Oh
So
wow.
it's just automating some of the aspects which are manual, either in Excel, and just making sure that you find a quick way of doing it, or stuff like reporting MI in Excel and moving it either to a Power BI, so that type of thing.
That's
Okay,
incredible. Yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and
Thanks.
I think technology augments us
Yes.
in our task. So it will disrupt some industries, if I just think of, Netflix and the video industry, or the cassette videos, or, so I think for us to be able to
What are those,
forecast.
Lindy? I don't know what cassettes are.
Yeah, I think us in this room might know, but the younger generation won't even know what's a VHS.
Yeah, Beta and VHS. Yep.
Yes, exactly. So, but I also think to be cognizant of what the disruptions might be, and then be agile enough to equip yourself, with the skills, the relevant skills, to be able to still stay relevant in or in a technology-driven world.
100%.
Yeah.
I fully agree.
Okay. So now I think advice that I would want to extrapolate from you, Bongani, is for a smart driven college student, someone that's maybe just finished with WITS. Yeah. What would your advice be to them in a real world sense? And what advice should they ignore? Because I think there's so many voices that you can listen to. You know, someone said the other day, there's so much information out there, but we are less informed. So I think for you, looking back and giving the advice to a young, smart college student, what would that be, and what should they ignore?
So so there's three aspects, and it's quite simple for me. It's, so one, be confident, believe in yourself, and build long lasting relationships. I think those
Sure,
those
power.
Those would
power.
be
Very nice.
key for
Yeah.
me.
Mm,
And in terms of what they should ignore, it's not necessarily advice. It's sometimes the politics at play. Sometimes there's a lot of politics at play in corporate, and
yeah,
you may get involved and get yourself bent. Just yeah, keep on
Mm.
looking forward and just working on yourself.
that's good.
And I
Good
think it's
advice.
difficult for people, Bongani. That's such an important thing to say, to recognize that, playing the political game in order to climb the corporate ladder is not always going to, it might work, but at some point, one of those runs is going to be very hot, as you say, and you're going to get your hands burnt. So it's again, it's that maturity and understanding, what to focus on.
Yeah,
I think it's so important. That's such an important thing. Yeah. Okay, so we were talking about, we've mentioned a few times, and I think it's still a big thing in our lives post-pandemic, right? This pandemic that came out of nowhere, knocked us all on our feet. We're experiencing a lot of things in this time. We've got pandemic, we've got war. I think we're experiencing things that most generations might not see, in the
yeah,
future. There's a lot going on. The recessions we've been through, 2008, we're entering into some sort of recession now. What would you say those things and the global pandemic? What 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 has the impact been on the industry from what you've seen, and what can we do moving forward to make sure that and yourself, we're in a more robust position to deal with something like this again in the future from an industry's perspective, personally, what have you taken from the experience? Because like nothing we've ever seen before, even some mentors and people that are there as figures to lead us as authority figures, they didn't know how to handle this, and like we spoke about how leadership is so important coming out of this.
yeah.
So what would you say you would change or do different, and what have you learned from that experience?
So so I think I would start at what opportunity has the pandemic given us, right? So if you think about it, so
Great place
for
to start.
for
Yep.
our company in particular, working from home was a, you can call it a privilege.
Yeah,
was
that's
a
so true.
was a privilege, and for
Yes.
the better, honestly, it has presented us with an opportunity to work from home,
Yep.
and what that has done is it has opened up the world to people like us,
Yeah,
because now I can apply for a job in the US, in the UK, in Australia,
Absolutely. Yep.
sitting right in my desk as I'm sitting right now.
yes, very
Are
While
you
true.
are you in Australia at the moment? The US, I see it's
Yeah,
sunny
Bongani.
outside, so it's got to be in the same time zone, right?
I wish.
All the way from the Bahamas.
I wish. But it's exactly that. So it's opened up the world to top talent, because now you can
Yeah,
earn a different currency while sitting in South Africa, which is for the better.
mm,
Unfortunately, some companies have started going back,
yeah,
and I think it's actually moving backwards instead of forwards. So I think
Interesting.
we, as
That's interesting.
companies, we must still explore and keep to the advantages work from home have given us. And
Mm,
if people are needed at the office as and when, that still needs to be a possibility, but it must
yeah,
not be the norm.
mm,
And what then needs to happen is, from an HR and talent management perspective, we must then move on from archaic ways of managing or rating talent, and we must then align to this new way of then delivery of
yeah,
goals, by then saying, this is my goal, or this is my target for the week, or this is my target for the month. And when someone delivers, we must align to that, because the that archaic way of saying people must seem busy is actually quite old,
yeah,
and people just want to do their deliverables. Once they have delivered their deliverables, then do whatever they want to do with their day, right?
yeah,
And I think the pandemic has given us the opportunity, but it's just then for leaders to then align to that, and just make sure that they giving the talent an opportunity to be able to perform like that. Because if you think about us who've been in the industry and you've been working at the office and who've got an opportunity to work from home, new guys that are coming off university now, some of them only went to the campus like a year or so. So you're already experiencing a population of people who do not understand this thing of going to the office. And now you must
Yeah.
think as a leader, how do I then adjust my habits and my ways of working for this new set of skills that are coming to my organization?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Sure.
It's such a poignant thing that you say, Bongani, because we experience it on an ongoing basis. Obviously, in the position we're in, we talk to a lot of people in business and in industry,
Yeah.
and the movement, as you've said, is that people are now trying to go back in a world that has changed, back to work, right? And there's a massive disjoint from industry. We're talking about people wanting, they're used to doing their thing, they're used to leading themselves in a position where they're working remote. And I think, I think leaders are worried about company culture. And, I suppose it's a control element in that sense to keep company culture going. But how do you do that where we are now, where we work remote? And I mean, hybrid models are a thing. People don't mind popping into the office. But what we find is that people want to work remote. They want to carry on doing that. But industry is pushing to go back. So there's a big disjoint. Where it's going to go, we don't know. I think people might find that they pilot it and it's not working as they want. Just, small things. When we look at obviously taking people from an opportunity to a better opportunity, right? That's what we do. That's a business, connecting good people with good opportunities. And it becomes such a relevant aspect when you take in the consideration of fuel nowadays and the fact that it costs a fortune now to drive around. And, so people now look at that and they say, well, I'm not driving at the moment. My package and what a company has to be so much more competitive in terms of the packages that they offer just to cover that side of things, It's the time aspect, it's the money aspect, and then locality. You cannot now hire someone in the Bahamas or in America or wherever it might be that you need to get there from. It closes your scope for talent and the people that you can bring on board and the right sort of people, because they need to be able to pop into the office or be working in the office every day. So it really is, look, I mean, there are different points of view. I don't want to say one is better than the other, but all I can say is that there's a disjoint, as you've now brought up. So it's very interesting being at the coal face of that and just seeing how things are changing, how people are going back.
Good point. And I just want to jump in here because in our experience, Bongani, most probably you've experienced this before, or in your daily recurrence with attracting top talent to your team. So in our experience, we were tasked by one of our clients in our portfolio, on our client estate. It's a big hedge fund functioning out of Atlanta, Georgia, as well as in New York. And they tasked us to ask us to find them a senior data scientist, but that's got opportunity or skill sets within the trading business, and and an interesting thing why they tasked us to go and headhunt for them this individual that will fully be operationally remotely from South Africa into Atlanta, Georgia, and into the States, or into New York on the East Coast, was that they said the talent pool in South Africa is so amazing that what is now happening is that our international counterparts understands the borderless aspect of what COVID has done for us or for them, and they are starting to fish in our pond, which makes it so much more difficult for our organizations to attract the top talent. Do you know what I mean? So, and he sits completely fully remote, based in Cape Town, and working East Coast hours, which is tough, but people are doing it because the competitiveness of the salaries, the international exposure, etc., etc. So I couldn't agree with you more that I don't think there's a right and a wrong, but there's a continual learning and practicing and asking the questions and being willing to try and test what works in your organization to manage, to be an employer of choice, because the choices out there are becoming so competitive.
Yeah. very competitive space. Nice getting paid in
I
dollars as
wouldn't
well.
mind, eh?
Yeah, no. I know. All right. So now the next question I have is more to do with the talent management, the recruitment experience that you've got. And I think just for those listeners that jumps online and they listen to and getting some input in it, and it's a growth area for all of us, in terms of how to do it better, to do better at recruitment, to do better at talent management or talent attraction. And the question is, what's in your experience been with recruitment and talent management agencies in the past from a client and candidate perspective? So you being a client and you being a candidate, what is your experience? And then I think it's so important for us, and we want to learn, is how can we do it better? And what is the advice that you can give us to learn from your experience?
So, so being a candidate, I think recruitment agencies sometimes don't take the time to build a relationship with you, because they'll come in, they'll try to recruit you for a particular position. If that doesn't work out, it feels like they just say, "Okay, bongs, see you later."
Yeah, sure.
They
But
ghost you. We don't need you anymore.
we don't need you
Sure.
anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that's such a short-sighted item, right? It's either, so if you think about it, it's either if you talk to me, place me, or if you talk to me and do not place me. However, there's still an opportunity to say, Bongani has this particular skill set. And if another position comes in, I can check in with Bongani a year later or a year or two later to say, either Bongani, are you still okay at the role that I've placed you in?
Yeah.
Are you looking for more opportunities? I know companies looking for people like you, because I think there's one recruitment agency that has kept in touch with me, and I've appreciated that. It's either at the point where I'm looking or I haven't. And on top of it, there's a particular company that had tried to recruit me and that didn't work out. However, the HR has kept in touch even after a year or two to say, we have a position for you. Would you like to consider talking to us? And it feels so, one, makes you feel valued as a
Yeah.
as a person looking to move or either stay as a candidate. And also, that's great for future placements, because it's a company I can look at to say, if I am looking, I can then contact that person to say, I'm finally available, would you like to have a chat? So
Yeah.
it's just building those relationships with candidates, because it's if you have a top talent, the relationship and opportunities are not for now, are also for the future, right?
Sure.
Because if I'm a senior manager now, in a couple of years I could be an executive.
Sure.
And for a
Absolutely.
recruitment agency, that's top dollar for you now and then.
Yeah, of
So it's
course.
investing
Yeah.
in the future for yourself while
I
you're
think it's
investing in
just,
my future also.
yeah, it's changing the industry, which we are taking steps in. It's to really be effective in our industry and to change the perception of it's almost like in and out. It's just about the money. And business needs to make money. There's no, I think every business is there to make money, to be able to serve their employees and their society as in large, right? But I think if we put in place continual engagement with the people that we want to serve, that is the key word here, to serve, right? And leading with value, right? The dividends that it will pay, not just now, the continual dividends will be of quite great value to an organization as well. But it's putting the human first,
Yes,
within the recruitment process, which is
Yeah,
hard, but it's important.
well, you're so right, Lindy. It is hard, but I think the vision that we have at Digger allows us to be able to do that. We don't necessarily say we're not in the business of recruitment. We're in the business of building a community,
Yes.
right? And
So we just
when
happen
we're
to make
building,
placements.
and we just happen to make places. That's exactly it. And when you're building a community, and also our focus, we try and focus on the top 10% of talent in the market. So, it's almost like there's more value to everything that we do, and there's more value in building relationships with the people that we build the relationships with. And that is so important. When you're in a community, it's about relationship, it's about networking, it's about walking a road together, it's about understanding where this person is, where they want to go, and being on a journey with them, and making that forefront of what you do.
Yeah.
When you do that and you get it right, the relationship part of it comes, and it has to come. And then it becomes a meaningful engagement in that sense. And I mean, you're not doing this properly if you don't have that relationship set up. So I think just going back to what you were saying, we focus on community, Bongs, and that's why we're able to walk the path, and it's a meaningful interaction, and it values your position as a candidate within the relationship, and it becomes consultative in that respect, where we walk a journey with you, not just trying to put you in a role somewhere. We understand what you want to do, where you're going. We understand what you're doing, why you're doing it, and then can present opportunities that are actually going to be of interest and are going to be an improvement in your career from a cultural perspective, from a technical perspective, and all those finer things that we should be doing. Those are the
we should do it better.
Yeah,
but it's so valuable to keep our ear on the ground. Bongani, as you say, it's about that relationship, and we don't get it right all the time. But I think if we can be 1% better than what we were yesterday, it's to the better of everybody. So thanks for that. I think it's so crucial for the audience and ourselves to take that and really integrate and massage it into the organizations that we form part of, whether it's us, whether it's other recruitment agencies, whether it's internal recruiters, because what is important to you should be important to us.
Absolutely. And then Bongs, just on the other side of that question, have you any comments about being in a position where you've had to rely, or where you've reached out to recruitment partners to assist you in finding scarce skills? Relatively, I suppose, in the space, a lot of it is scarce skills, especially if you've got the combination that you have.
But it's been so difficult. I think what the difficulty has been on our side is, so you'll speak to a recruitment agency to get you quants, and the difficulty is that disconnect between the people they bring you and what they think we do.
Yeah.
Because sometimes they either bring you people who are not quants, who are auditors, and we can't hire them because they wouldn't know how to do what we are doing. Or sometimes they struggle to just get quants who want to come into audit. Or then so sometimes it's an understanding thing where they do not understand what we are looking for, or a aspect of where they can't find candidates who want to come into our area. And I've had to then reach out myself to either some connections of mine where I've asked them to then assist me to find candidates, which is a more difficult route, because then I'd need to call people myself or refer people myself to HR. And it's a challenging environment.
Doubling your work. You would have started there if you knew you were going to get to that point, which shows there's a disconnect and a disjoint, obviously, from a recruitment partner perspective in the market and understanding these roles. Because I suppose they're not spending time talking to the candidates, and that's exactly, I think, where it stems from. Understand the candidates, understand the people, understand the growth paths, what they're doing, the technical background that they need, etc., and then you understand what you're doing and what people are looking for, the little nuances, So I think it's so important. Okay, it's good to hear that.
I think I want to just add to that also, and I think it's such a pertinent question, Craig, that you've asked. But Bongani, in your experience, I know that from our perspective, it's about talent branding, and that is one of the 3 pillars that we build our business on, and that the value that the value proposition that we bring to the market is about talent branding. And how do you not just go and hunt for the talent, but how do you pull the talent? So it's a push and pull strategy in terms of talent. And the pull strategy has got to do with your talent brand, right? Your team's brand, right? Or the organization that you work with. So my question is, how can organizations, or how can you possibly in your team do better with your talent brand to attract the top talent to you in order for them not to go to your competitor?
So it's a difficult one, especially nowadays. So we are part of the Quant graduate program within our organization, where we get some of the Quant graduates to rotate within our area.
Yeah.
And the way in my chats with some of them who've been in my team is, so they're not looking for a job, but they're looking for an experience. and
Sure.
and and that experience covers not only the technical aspect, but also the softer aspects.
Mm,
They want to enjoy what they do. They want to always be challenged. They want to know that, from the challenge, and if they do well, they are well either remunerated, or they will move up in the organization. So it's a big balance of one, giving them the job and the work they need to do, but it
yeah.
must be challenging enough, but also interesting, and the environment must also be well, such that it fosters creativity, fosters openness, and
Yeah.
also allows people to fail fast and be able to move on, and not be mired by their failure.
Sure.
And if you create that experience for these kids and these people who are coming on to the organization, then it attracts them. Because if you're just selling a job or a position,
Mm, mm.
it's not the time has passed. People are not desperate for jobs.
Can I tell you,
Exactly.
Bongani, that is such a good point because we feel it as well in our organization, and we've got a hashtag that we live by, and it's impacting futures, because it's not a job. If you look at what a career opportunity can do for someone and their family, right? It's about the impacting of generations to come. Yeah. So I think it's I haven't heard it in that way before. Like it's an experience that
Mm,
people are looking for, because we always think of the customer experience, buying a product, or your onboarding experience with an organization, which is completely relevant. But I haven't heard talent branding and experience used in the same. And I think that is gold, Bongani, as an advice for people that's listening, and for organizations to really hone into, to say, how do we connect the two? Our talent brand,
mm.
right, of the organization as a whole, our talent brand of the team, because your culture is different within your team, your values are different within a team, and how do I link it to the experience of the overall organization, but also within the team? That is
Exactly.
amazing.
Yeah. And then communicating that, making the message clear. This is the differentiating factor. This is the UVP for us
Yeah.
to attract this talent, making it, what's the word I'm
Access
looking for?
on their phones.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
exactly, yeah, accessibility, all those sorts of things,
Yeah.
and making it relevant. So, making sure the message is relevant, it's communicated correctly. That's so
Yeah.
important, because you can have all these things, you can have a great value, great culture, all these things, bongs, that you were saying, but how do we now communicate that to market to say that, that's our value proposition
And
at the end
meet
of the day?
people where they're at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
And
we always, like in our experience, we always take people and say, listen, go do some research on the organization. Bongs, you most
correct.
probably have heard of that.
Yeah.
But we take them to the website. We refer
Further.
them to the website, and then they say to us, okay, but I don't want to know the financials. Okay,
True.
I'll read about the financials, but what is pertinent to me and to my family?
Yeah.
That is what is important. And I think sometimes there is a lack in communicating that value to the individual minutia point.
Yeah. Yeah.
But thanks for that. That is, I'll
Yeah.
take away that. Thank you so
100%.
much.
No, that's good insight.
Yeah.
So Bongs, we're exiting the serious side of the topic. We're going to have a little bit of fun here, just for a little while. We're going to give you some nice rapid fire questions, quick answers, what you would do, in the senses whatever it is that we're asking. So we can have a bit of fun now, okay?
Okay.
So number one,
Yes.
if you've been given an elephant, okay, an elephant, right? A fully grown elephant, not a baby elephant. Would you give it away? Would you sell it? Or what would you do with the elephant? If you were given an elephant, here we go. Boom, happy birthday.
30 seconds, go.
30 seconds, go.
So an elephant, I've never seen an elephant in front of me. Actually, I've seen it in
Quite
in
impressive.
a in a park, but it
Yes.
was hidden somewhere. So I think it's a good opportunity to get my son to play with it, or my family and their kids to play with it.
Yes, absolutely.
I
Yeah,
know
okay.
women
Walk
like
on the wild side, Bongani.
So the neighbors would see you riding around in your garden with the family on the elephant.
as long as it doesn't break our walls, I think we should
Oh,
should keep
I don't
it.
know how
It'll be
your
fine.
wife would feel about that.
Yeah, I don't know. After the
Who's going to
day,
clean up after the elephant?
Or
exactly,
feed
that's
it.
a problem. That's
Yeah.
a big problem because we have a dog, and yeah, it's
Oh,
also
no.
a mess.
No. Okay, next question. If you had one superpower, what would it be?
That's an easy one actually.
Yes.
I'd like to fly, and that's I like my sleep, so it would give me an opportunity to sleep more, but still make it to the office on time.
Wow, there we go. I like that. It's
Lovely.
practical. It's flying, but it's still practical. So you can't be afraid of heights, that's for sure. So you
No,
won't do low-level flying. You're going to go up and...
Yeah,
now I
no.
need to get to the office fast. Eh?
Okay, last one. If you could go back and teach your younger self something, anything, what would it be?
ah, I guess it's exactly the aspects I've highlighted already. I think it's honestly, and I'm seeing it more and more every day. The quality and of building relationships. I think it's and it goes beyond corporate, right? Because it sets you up in corporate, sets you up in life, it sets you up in business. So it's just building those relationships and making sure that because I'm a talented guy, if I
Yes.
say so myself.
No, good.
Uh,
Good.
and it's easy if you think about it to get opportunities if you are a talented person,
Sure.
but it all lies in which relationships you have, who you know, what can they do, and what opportunities can they present to you. So
Lovely.
I think to my younger self, definitely, and even to my son, I think I'm trying to teach him that, to say you must, yeah, build good relationships so that then in the future you don't have to worry.
Yeah.
So important. Always such great advice for your boy. Very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.